Welcome to Babblecom 5. This is episode 9 of season 3 of Babylon 5, Point of No Return. Also the title for this season, so get your head screwed on. Londo is encouraging Veer to rewrite what is undoubtedly an A-star report on Minbar into something more, well, Centauri. He recommends translating them enjoying art and culture to dubious pleasures, not because it means anything, but because people get disturbed by the word dubious. Gilbert would be proud. Intelligence has nothing to do with politics. I'm saying nothing, Londo. Just as Veer is about to get some rest, a call comes in to say that Lady Morella, the third wife of the last emperor, has agreed to meet with Malari, which is a big coup for him. Except for the fact that the station is now in turmoil due to the martial law proclamation from Earth in the last episode. Sheridan and Ivanova learn that the Senate has been dissolved by executive order, with senators on the run. Then the Senate building the speaker is broadcasting from comes under fire and communication breaks off. Babylon 5 is on its own. Sheridan and Ivanova encourage the crew on the command deck to act as they normally would, as they have yet to receive orders in connection with the enactment of martial law. But Ivanova wants a squadron of Furies in space at all times, in case any alien races try to take advantage of the situation. Corwin asks what they did wrong for this to have happened, and Sheridan has no answer for him. Garibaldi meets them to update them on General Haig, who is now on Earth's most wanted list, and of course their prime contact. It's possible he'll try and make it to the station. Zack tries to watch ISN as the senator encourages people to form a living shield around the Senate building, but the keenest Nightwatch flunky kills the broadcast and tells him to come to an 11 AM meeting of the Watch, but keep it quiet, no links, and to bring extra energy caps, which is ammunition, for his PPG because they might need them. This is not a positive development. Garibaldi frees the singing Jakar early, as he can't spare guards for him at this point, nor does he particularly care if his sentence is completed at this point. Jakar says he may have something for him soon, and leaves. Lady Morella arrives on station, played by Major Roddenberry, who I once saw at a convention. A nice bit of Trek linkage, but a very different character than the one she plays in Trek. Londo is cursing, because he's been trying for this meeting for months, and the station is messed up for her arrival. Veer doesn't understand why it's so important, and Londo explains that she is regarded as a prophetess, and he hopes to gain her insight into his future, preferably that the one he has seen is wrong. She is not overly impressed that there are no Earth Alliance officials to greet her, but Veer explains they are distracted and sends their regrets. Veer notices that she describes herself in the plural, Londo explaining that after Turan's death, she is viewed as speaking for him from the other side, even though power has passed to Cartasia. Like the table in the conference room, notice it has EA built into it in lights. Basically, Sheridan is getting his orders from on high and is reminded to respect the chain of command. As of this point in time, Nightwatch is to have exclusive control of off-world security. New members may be accepted now after background checks, but otherwise it's the team's as is. Sheridan obviously objects, but has been told to keep his opinions to himself. The 11 AM meeting of the Watch is relaying this change to their members, and Zack's best friend has well and truly got the bit between his teeth to weed out the perceived traitors in light of these developments. Wind them up and let them go. Jakar meets Talon, who has been waiting for him outside his quarters during his incarceration, occasionally sleeping, as he sensed an opportunity to help Jakar. Jakar reassures him that that moment may well be coming. Various members of security are lining up to either accept or reject a Nightwatch armband. Some do, some don't. Garibaldi wants to march down and start busting heads, but Sheridan is desperate for him not to do so he can keep him in post. But Garibaldi is passionate about his people, and Nightwatch being able to break them up is beyond the pale for him. Unfortunately, Sheridan has no clever answers for him at this point. Lady Morella knows that there is more to Londo's wish for at all than he is saying, and eventually he is open about his wish for her to view his future, to determine whether he should walk this path or turn away from it. She tells him that we always have choices, that war with Anan and an alliance with the Earth Alliance were never her late husband's plan, but she will give Londo his reading before she leaves. Garibaldi does charge into security despite Zack intercepting him on the way, with, as he puts it, hell 5 steps behind him. Table upturned, paperwork scattered, but talking too, about how he's looked after his team for the past 3 years, how if anything they've done together has meant a damn, They should work together now for the station and the captain, not for some political agenda back home. His impassioned protests fall on deaf ears, and Zack is promoted to chief of security as Garibaldi leaves the room, asking Zack if this is what he wanted. G'Kar tries to explain to Talon that he is now a new creature, birthed in the revelation that in order to save the Narn, they must be willing to sacrifice themselves not for themselves, but for others, and the humans are the key. Helping them to turn that key can lead to salvation for all, and that is what he now hopes to teach his people. Meanwhile, Sheridan has finally received the official declaration of martial law for the station. He wishes Delenn were there. He'll give the declaration as soon as he can stomach it, but keeps the irrelevant out of it. Lady Morella's tour starts on the Zocalo as news comes onto ISN of a firefight between Earth ships, including the Alexander Hague ship. Nightwatch start to file onto the Zocalo as a cheer goes up, with Clark Lawless ships taking hits that allow the Alexander and others to jump out. Nightwatch start to use their daysticks to disperse the crowd just as Sheridan begins to declare martial law. Zack watches on as violence escalates. Veer puts himself between a bottle and Lady Morella as they try and extricate themselves from the disruption. A flying chair takes out a monitor just as Sheridan completes his announcement. Franklin comes to console Sheridan, who says they can't go against the chain of command, but that tips off Sheridan to something General Schmitz was trying to tell him earlier when putting Nightwatch in charge of security on an unsecured channel. Now it's Sheridan telling Franklin to do stuff off the link and get Garibaldi to the captain ASAP. Sheridan reviews the General's message about where the Nightwatch command came from, an opportunity, not a burden. Shortly afterwards, G'Kar appears on the command deck to tell Ivanova he's had an idea. After that, Zack is ushered into a rather unexpected meeting with Ivanova, Garibaldi, Sheridan and G'Kar. Shortly after that, he's reporting back to the Nightwatch commander on a plot to bring in Narn to supplant Nightwatch. Sheridan waits in darkness until an alarm calls him into action. Action beats start up as the PPG is checked. Lots of purposeful striding ensues. Clearly, Nightwatch have never watched The Return of the Jedi. Akbar! Zack's pulled them all together into a place that can be sealed against vacuum and executed a very natty dive through a closing door to get himself out of dodge. All of the Nightwatch wrapped up with a bow for the captain. Zack done good. And so Sheridan now announces to Nightwatch that the political office, who gave the order to assume control of security operations, is a civilian organisation despite its presidential ties. Consequently, it, like a senator, cannot issue orders to the military arm of the government. So Nightwatch have broken the chain of command and acted in support of an illegal order. They can either stay put or come out one by one, disarm, and be put under house arrest until such time as the orders come through proper channels. Sheridan also helpfully suggests that they not try burning their way out, as the alloy the bay is made out of is rather tough, and Ricochet's a killer. He asks Franklin to stay put in case anyone doesn't take his advice. Ivanova notes that a reissued order from the President will put them back at square one, but Sheridan notes that it may give them enough time for the situation on Earth to be stabilised in their favour. Franklin notes that their security force is going to be depleted until then, at which point Garibaldi calls in the Narn. Franklin laughs, saying he's kidding. Then, you're not kidding. So the Narn replacement idea wasn't entirely fictitious as it turns out. A lie hidden within a truth, easier to swallow, as Sheridan puts it. Londo is in for a little surprise. Speaking of whom, Morella is about to give him his prophecy, which is for his ears only. And Veer's, it seems. She says he has 3 opportunities to avoid his fate, having wasted 2 already. Save the eye that does not see. Don't kill the one who is already dead. Surrender yourself to your greatest fear, knowing it will destroy you. He doesn't understand, but she says he needs to look for the sign when it appears. She also says that he will be emperor. There is no avoiding that. She then also says, to everyone's surprise, that Veer will also be emperor. He thinks she's joking, but she doesn't joke about prophecy. As they can't both be emperor, one will be emperor when the other is dead. And Londo thought he was confused before. Lady Morella heads for home, sharing a lift with Talon on the security detail. He grins a hilarious grin as they exchange looks. But apparently the non-security team is doing a fine job, and now G'Kar makes his reciprocal request of Sheridan. He wants in on the new alliance. Sheridan doesn't bother denying it because they both know Jakar's no fool, but says he'll have to talk it over with the others. There then follows a terrific scene with Londo and Veer sat at opposing ends of a window seat as both contemplate the prophecy, with Londo politely declining to eat Veer's spoo. He's going to order in instead. Beautifully played for comedy by both of them. Ivanova tells Sheridan Delenn is back. 4 of the cruisers that defected with Clark have apparently been shot down, leaving just his, which is expected to be captured when it drops back into normal space. They note they'll be coming after B5 next, and never saw it ending like this. The camera pans away from them both looking out onto the interior of the station. So, what does this episode revolve around? Choices. Londo is provided with some. Jakar has made one. Zack has made a critical one that could change the whole course of the station's story. No shots were fired, just people, good old-fashioned idiot humans, making choices to forward their own careers or not, to sacrifice their people for the greater good or not. We are, I suppose, the sum of our choices. Much of this episode is a natural flow-on from the events that we've seen building for some time, but by resisting the Nightwatch mandate, Ivanova and Sheridan know they've painted a big bullseye on the station for Clark's forces, and the next episode will obviously deal with the consequences of that. In fact, we've gotten there a little faster than I recalled. But this, as titled, is indeed the point of no return in many ways that will become apparent as the season progresses. So although we see some of what's happening outside the station and hear about it, the station very much decides its own destiny here. Sad to see so many of Garibaldi's team not support him, but such is the sheep mentality. Perception is key, and Nightwatch is all about perception. Equally impressive to see how passionate he is about his team, though. Tough pill to swallow for him. Also fascinating to see the playing out of martial law and executive orders, which of course a certain ex-president in the recent past used quite a lot to get his own way, in which we were often somewhat stretched. Here, of course, we have a slightly different quirk, where a branch of the civilian government has tried to assert control over military assets when only the president can do so directly as commander-in-chief down the chain of command. Lovely way for Sheridan to ostensibly, legitimately defang Nightwatch in the short term, because they're caught in a logic loop. They can't be anti-government by their nature, yet Sheridan has painted them as such, even though they know that ultimately they have a presidential mandate. All involved know it's a delaying tactic at heart, but Sheridan has quite literally boxed them into a corner, entirely thanks to Zack, who was clearly not quite sure even until the last second, and you can completely see where he's coming from, a horrible position to be placed in. Lady Morella's prophecy is a big part of this episode, because it's apparent that Londo is running out of time to change his path, yet he's set on a path to be the Emperor regardless. The clues to his choices are cryptic, but clearly one thing he could have done was simply say no to Morden. Morden might have found another, certainly, but Londo would have changed his personal path in some way. Maybe he could have opted to marry the dancer Ladera. That might have changed his path. We all have those what-if moments, and thusly are multiversal concepts formed. As for his future options, well, Jameis has those mapped out, of course. The revelation about both Veer and Londo becoming Emperor at some point is, of course, hilarious, because Veer is a complete no-one in royal terms at the moment, so logically Londo has to be Emperor first, followed by Veer, which means Londo has to die first, for Veer to be Emperor after. Quite how that might happen, however, is clearly heavily foreshadowing. Jakar seems to have come out of his own chrysalis here, much like Delenn did. He is now pushing for something very different to what he was pushing for before, and he seems to have retained the loyalty of the local Narn here. Again, we see a lot of Narn prosthetic heads here, and of course the ever-shrewd Talon having Jakar's back. Perhaps even taking over the aid role that seems to have become vacant. I see him as almost a warrior monk in a way, and I love that moment in the lift where he's shoulder to shoulder with Lady Morella. Classic B5 comedy. So, by the end of the episode, Nightwatch's immediate time has come and gone, which gives Sheridan room to breathe again, and Delenn is back, whose absence John clearly felt in this time of crisis. The Narn are supporting Sheridan, and Jakar wants in on the Anti-Shadow Alliance. Zack has rejected Nightwatch, but as a result of the station's rejection of Nightwatch as a whole, the implicit outcome is that they are also rejecting Clark's new order, which puts them in the firing line. The question is, what will Clark's next move be? These episodes really are at the heart of one of those stories that JMS wanted to tell, and they are executed so well. Maisie Roddenberry's part is important here, and she plays it very well. As you know, I don't spoil for future episodes, but you really don't want to miss the next one because it really is a doozy. I'll try and tackle it this weekend. It's actually my birthday today. I've only just completed this in time to schedule it, so I really need to get ahead. So, thanks for listening, and stay tuned for the next exciting episodes. Cheers for now.